G'day guys, welcome to the latest episode of Beyond the Tape. This is a tech talk and what possibly could be changing into something a little bit different, as we are tending to go on a lot of tangents and talk about a lot of shit and go down the rabbit hole. Before we move on to this episode, let me thank some of our supporters. The main supporter for these episodes is Lead Out Sports. These guys offer some premium tools in Australia. They've recently just took a delivery of the Elevation Wheel Company parts and tools. These guys offer some unique solutions to problems you didn't think existed. So, for example, they've got an Apple AirTag holder that clips on to your bike via any mount or any accessory mount or bottle cage mount. Their nipple shuffle box is the best for any professional wheel builder out there as well. Keeps your nipples all in line, which, you need to do. And their DT Star ratchet drive ring tools, if you're a proper mechanic and you are taking those things out, you need something strong for that. And Elevation Wheel Company is doing that for you. Trek are a big sponsor of the podcast as a whole. Super happy to have them on board. And I've actually been looking at getting a trail bike or a cross-country bike of recent because I want something a little bit different and something a little bit challenging when it comes to underbiking. And the Fuel EX seems like a bike that's absolutely going to rip the trails. A nice little 120, 130 mil bike, nice angles, super playful, super fun, but can still handle that aggressive riding. So if you're looking to do the same, make sure you jump over to Trek and check out that bike. If you need to tweak any Allen keys, bolts, or anything on your bike, make sure you're using the Vera Allen keys from FE Sports. Vera are well regarded within the mechanic industry, and that's because they work so damn well. Their unique profile, a bit different to usual hex key, make sure it bites into every interface and gets every bolt torqued up to spec without damaging the heads or anything. I'm a huge fan of these keys, and man, they just last and last. You'll have them for decades. NS Dynamics has been a podcast supporter since day one. They don't just offer tuning and suspension servicing though. They also offer some products. For example, they offer the 4-sprung Secus airspring kit. This airspring kit increases your negative chamber by attaching to the lowers down by the bottom there. It has an enlarged negative airspring chamber that delivers a soft, supple initial stroke for added small bump compliance, yet it still manages to keep mid-stroke support thanks to a proprietary fucking nailed that word, proprietary support valve, and man, it just offers support and then gives you a lower ramp. So if you're a young kid or a lighter rider that needs to run less weight but struggles to use all their travel in both directions, make sure you check this out because it could be an absolute game changer for you. Franked Apparel are from Western Australia. These guys offer some of the best designs on the market with some of the best materials. The Franked Apparel doesn't just have to be for the big guys though. If you have a child that absolutely shreds and loves riding and wants to look rad, make sure you check out the Franked Apparel's youth and child range because, man, it looks cool. And what's better than, you and your kids shredding and looking good. Now, if you want to take your kids on a holiday down to Tasmania and shred, we know that it can be a bit of a struggle to get everything organised and all the ducks in a row. That's why it would be great to check out Tailored Trails. These guys offer fully custom, fully unique tours in Tasmania to all the best mountain bike parks across the state. They take care of everything you need so you can just rock up, shred your bike and have a great time. Now, after that, you're probably going to need to wash your bike, and there is nothing better than Crush. Now, when you're on the travels, you don't know if there's going to be a hose or anything around, so I tend to use the waterless wash, a wash and polish all-in-one solution where I can just spray it on and clean. Man, it is so good. I might have even used it to shower a couple of times, but man, it just saves a lot of time, a lot of effort, and if you've got no water, it's the best solution. Now, if you're getting mud and stuff all in your eyes and you haven't got a mud guard, make sure you check out Dirt Surfers. These guys offer 100% recycled and 100% recyclable mud guards for your bike to keep the mud out of your eyes and out of those stanchions. And man, it's getting cold right now. So make sure you wrap your hands in some fist gloves. Super comfortable, heaps of grip, really, really warm. Anyway, this is a long one, so I'm going to move on. Grab beer, grab water, grab a wine, and enjoy the podcast.
Yeah, I was asked when we're getting into it.
I wasn't sure if we'd started, but yeah, it's going
on. Sick. Lockie and Mick, welcome back. How you guys going?
I think we're both still got the handmade hangover, as we were just discussing the last half hour.
Weathered, absolutely weathered. Looking for like a chill week, but won't be coming for a while.
Yeah, we do have day jobs outside of this podcast. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. If you could just get some more Spono money, Darren, and give us a wage, that'd be sick.
Yeah, if I
know you're retiring early, but you know about the rest of us.
Yeah, I ordered my mansion yesterday.
Throw Lockie and I some lead out sports vouchers, Darren. Come on.
I'll get Pat onto it.
That's good to me.
Yeah. So what's been happening? I saw SRAM had a little bit of or RockShox had a little bit of a release over the last week.
Yeah, that was big. That was a massive one just before Handmade, which was like, But it's cool. Like that one's been in the pipeline for a while. And obviously I was at SRAM before, so I kind of known about it for a while. So it'd been in my head for ages. And then it got pushed out like a month. So like in my head, they kind of came out like a while ago, but they hadn't actually come out, which was cool. Like big changes, but like not recreating the wheel, which I think is good. You know, like you get some stuff which is like brand new, and you know, there's just some teething issues sometimes, but I don't think this is kind of going to be like that at all. And then the dampers are fucking awesome. The air springs are sick. Like the air spring stuff makes sense. The dimple's been moved on the Pike and Lyric, so it's kind of like sits between where it was with Debonair and the new Debonair, whatever it was, which is cool. The dampers are really sick. Like obviously IP pack. The circuitry is cool, and if anyone wants to look at really good animations, if you go to the RockShox website and look up Charger 3, it's got like the fluid flow diagrams.
Yes,
that really helps because it's a way better damper than the old one. Not that the old one was bad, but they just get a little bit choked. And then I kind of like the fact now that the ultimate forks are like the duck's nuts. Like they've got everything good. Whereas before it was like, there was like the ultimate and like the Select Plus, and the Select Plus was kind of the same, but didn't have the cool stickers, and like there's a lot of confusion. So I think it's like, that's really cool. I got the new Zeb on my bike, which is sick. I haven't ridden it yet. Connor Griffin's borrowing my bike. He thought he was racing last weekend. It's actually this weekend. So I haven't ridden that one, but I've got to spend some time on it in Maydena in January with Dylan. So that was sick. Like, yeah, if you get the new fork and you have time to hang on to your old fork, I'd really suggest doing like some back-to-back, like try the new one, put the old one back on, because you'll, which is sick. If you're on the Zeb, you'll probably decrease your tokens a little bit than what you had before, because there's a bit more head in the piston. Yeah, and there's some really cool little hacks with the air release valves if you want to get real techie and push the forky down and then press the press release valves and then put the fork up. Makes a little bit of a negative in the lower, which is a cool little trick. Makes it feel a bit more supple off the top. I don't think it's technically recommended, but yeah, it's good. So that was cool.
And Mick, you did a thing. You like built a bike or something pretty small over the last week.
Well, yeah, I'm like in no way going to take all credit for it. The Trinity thing obviously is Chase, Nigel, and myself. But yeah, we displayed Proto 2 at the Handmade, which was always exciting. We kind of get a lot out of it. I don't know. Sometimes, like the nature of my business is, like sometimes I feel like a bit of a hermit because just busy making products and distributing them straight to direct to customers. And a lot of the interaction I have with people is kind of at the races and whatever, which is great. Like I get a lot out of that. But Handmade's good for like that expo-y type of medium to chat to people who you otherwise might not sort of chat to. Which I get a lot out of it. And also, I think if you've got a date that you work towards, I think it always kind of puts the fire up your ass to get something done. It's kind of like
Yeah.
if you've got a race coming up in 3 months, you'll train really hard and do good at the race. But if you don't have a race planned for 2 years, you get pretty lazy. So it's always it's always kind of good to have a bit of a I don't know. Handmade's good for that because you're displaying, or for us anyway, like displaying a bike, not just a product. It kind of really gets it up here to get it out. So, like a lot of that frame, that a lot of people don't know, I guess, but like a lot of that frame, like the rear end and whatever, kind of had sitting in the cabinet for 6 months, just kind of plodding away on it, whatever. Like we had the prints, the majority of the prints we had for a few months, and then it was really just down to the last week. We were like, all right, we'll get it together. Like Nigel welded it Thursday night at like 10
on
p.m.
his birthday.
Yeah. We went to the show at lunchtime on Friday. So yeah, no, it was good. The reception of it was really good. I think I was saying to you guys just before, like kind of been getting hammered on social media, which is really good. Like we got a lot of people asking when it's going to be available and to buy it and whatever. So it's definitely not going to be next Handmade show that it's going to be available. It'll be available before then, which is really good. We need to at least build one more just to kind of iron some things out that I guess wouldn't have been visible to the average person at the show. Not that there's
I had a pretty
anything
close
wrong.
look on Saturday, and I was like, "Oh, yep, this is cool." But yep,
Yep. There's a couple of things that need to be ironed out. Like it rides around fine, but just want to neaten some things up really. But yeah, it's I guess as a scale from version 1, like we rode version 1. That's not an issue, but V2 is so much closer to production ready than V1 was. I think when we kind of pulled it off the jig Thursday night and kind of started assembling it, we were like, oh, this actually looks way closer to production than what we expected. So fix a couple of things up and be good to go.
I remember looking at V1, never like thinking like that looks good. You know what I mean? Like that looks ready to be built as a handmade bike, right? Like, but then you see V2 and you're like, whoa, like that stepped up a whole nother level. Like, and I get what you mean. Like it looks like it's ready to roll.
The funny thing is, and like I was saying, like, a lot of V2 was just sitting in a cabinet for 6 months. So where we're actually at with V3 is like, it's pretty well ready to be welded up. So, a lot of people, I guess, would see the social media and whatever around V2 at the moment and be like, oh, well, that's V2. And in fact, that's probably, 6 months sort of lagged behind. So, the changes that we're going to incorporate into V3 will be sort of that much again. People have been commenting saying V2 is perfect, just release it. I'm like, no, like, trust me. Hang on to your horses a little bit.
From what point from Handmade last year did V2 come to fruition? Like, was that in your heads as that thing was on the welder, or was it a bit of time until you came up with V2 from that?
A bit of both. Like, there was a couple of things with V1, like literally as soon as we started building it, we were like, this has got to be changed, and got incorporated into a V2 design, like literally the same time as V1. A couple of things have been developing over time, like the 3D printed stuff got developed. Like, even though that sort of came about pretty soon after the show that we wanted to go the printed route, it's still kind of evolved over time a little bit. So it was a mix and match. But yeah, I think like with no form of arrogance or anything like that, I think each time that one sort of pops out of the jig, I think we kind of surprise ourselves that how much better it looks than what we thought. Sometimes you think you might be a bit of a kook. You're like, what the fuck are we doing? And then it pops off and you're like, oh, actually that looks pretty good.
You got the opposite of arrogance.
What are some of the things that you changed?
I won't give too much away, but Mainly just geometrical stuff. And I'm not talking geometry. I'm just talking geometrical. So stuff just fits a little bit sort of nicer. So as an example, like a couple of the prints were a little bit over-engineered. Like it came in like a pretty good weight. Like it was in the 17s. But that was a bit heavier than what we wanted, because last year's was 15.2, and this year we kind of just designed away without really weight in our minds, because we're like, well, V1 worked and it held up. Sort of design V2. Like obviously consider the weight, but like don't be a weight Nazi, because we really wanted to sort of put it through the ringer. So when it came in the 17s, we were kind of pretty happy, because we knew how over-engineered it was, like particularly in the prints. So we're going to dive a fair bit into FEA and that type of stuff to really optimize the prints, take out weight where it can be taken out, and really kind of just clean it up. Because I think like with anything, stuff can look really good on a computer, and then when it pops out and you're actually looking at it in real life, you're like, oh, I reckon, if we just tweak that here and there. And look, it's a portion of being sort of OCD too, like, just neaten it up. But I think, the prints will be good. And then just kind of the rocker section in the rear end, like it's perfect. Kinematics are sweet, all of that. We just want to trim a couple of things down to give some more clearance about the chainring and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty much, I don't know, like all the lineage will be the same. And I think that's what's cool about, like, V1 was kind of drastically different to V2. Like, it's come a long way, but I think the lineage is kind of the same. Like if you looked at V1 and then looked at V2, you'd be like, oh, that's a Trinity. But yet they're two very different bikes, which, back to the Bormy thing, not that we've necessarily tried to do that, but the Bormy thing that we were talking about is kind of like that. Like, you could have two different bikes, two totally different geometry bikes, like they're custom, but you can tell it's a Borm. And I think, like, we're definitely trying to do that with Trinity anyway.
Did you get on the Big Bike comments at all with on the bike?
I did on Saturday morning. I had a quick look. The post had only been up for like half an hour, so there was only a few.
Don't. Dude, like, I've never had anything on Pink Bike that has like anything to do with me. And like, because the stem's on there, right? And someone was like, what's this fucking stem thing about? And I just put a thing on there saying, hey, like, I'm trying this out. I want my hands to be in a similar position of my axle, like blah, blah, blah. The people are like, it sounds like you just have a stem that's in the middle of the two stems you tried. And I was like, probably. Like, it was so weird. It's like, you had to prove everything in the comments. And I was like, I think my reply was like, I have no scientific approach to this. I'm just trying stuff. Mick makes custom stems. Thought I'd give it a crack. Like, sorry. It was so weird. And the down Duro hate. Oh my God. Yeah, don't do it.
Oh man, what was so funny, because that got picked up and ran with, because Dave Rome said to me, because we're taking some pictures of it, obviously, like out the front, and for those that don't know, like, we had the new Zeb on it, which I think was like a really good spectacle, because people obviously were intrigued in the new Zeb, people intrigued in the Trinity, and having them both on one another was cool. But not only that, like, I think it's really cool. And like, Nigel's really good at this, like, who's part of Trinity, is that because he does car and motorbike shows and all that type of stuff. I think what he does really well is he chooses a theme and like, okay, it might not be the fastest car in the paddock, but I'm going with the theme, and like, I want to set good lap times for the theme that this car fits. Yeah. And I think that's kind of really important, particularly for a show like Handmade. Like, you're not going to a World Cup and the only thing you want to do is win. Like, the theme is kind of important. And last year we went with a full downhill rig, which was sick. But realistically, like, that's only going to be, I'm not going to say super small, but it's going to be a smaller percentage of the Trinity market. Like, most people are going to buy this for an enduro bike. But at the same time, like, it didn't really want to have like a dinner plate cassette on the back. Like, kind of wanted it to be cool, but also enduro-y. And we were out the front taking some pictures, and Dave goes, "Oh, like what would you describe the build as?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, like free ride or like down duro." And he's like, "What the fuck's down duro?" And I'm like, "Oh, like because Maydena had their down duro, and I'd done pineapple like the week or 2 weeks before or whatever it was, which was a down duro, like shuttled up, and enduro track down." And it was just kind of a fleeting comment. And he's like, "Down duro, what's that?" And this is in no way like Dave's a legend.
Yeah.
But he's like, "Down duro, are you starting a new category or whatever?" I'm like, no. I just go, like, no, but I reckon like I'm happy to be put on the record, but like I reckon that down duro will be kind of the future of mountain biking. Like I really do.
100%. All the events are going that way, exactly. Like even at Threadbow, right? Like Timmy Eatons and stuff are chucking on downhill cassettes. Like I'm going to do the same thing to my Jekyll when I finally get it back from Connor. Like I'm making it into like small block on the back, just have dedicated for park bike laps, and it makes it a park bike. But I just kind of love the fact that it's like not like the article wasn't misconstrued. It's a big bike Connor's misconstrued to be like, that you're trying to make this subset to sell bikes. And it's just like, no.
And that's the funny thing. And like, obviously no one's done their research into the bike. Cause I think people who read it naively probably thought that we designed the frame around trying to be a down duro bike. And it's like, no. It's an enduro downhill bike, kind of like the Dreadnought is, like it can do both, particularly because we've got a flip chip on the shock and all that. Like it can do both and go from 155 up to 195, all of that jazz. But the way we have it spec'd would be optimal for a free ride bike or like a down duro. I think people took it as like, oh, they've designed a frame around this race category. So that was kind of funny because Dave actually texted me and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm trying to change the caption. like I can't get in." And I'm like, he felt really guilty. I'm like, "Dude, like it's fine, I don't care." Like
all press is good press, man. Like but it was just I wasn't expecting that.
No, and the other thing too is like, happy to go on record, like laugh at me in 5 or 10 years when down duro is fucking massive because it's going to take off. Like
it's so sick.
And like because it's inclusive. That's the thing. Like not everyone's fit enough, or do they want to pedal a whole enduro race? Like it's hard work.
We had one here that was part of the Festival of Cycling, and because of daylight savings, like we held it in the evening, and then you can go to the winery and get some apple juices and have a great time afterwards.
And the thing is with enduro having grown so much in the last 5 years is that it makes downhill look like bad value, because downhill you only get one run. And like, don't get me wrong, like downhill's sick and there'll always be a place for downhill. Like I love downhill. And there's a spectacle to the fact that it's one run. Like it all comes down to one thing. But just I'm talking about like club racing or state level racing or whatever, enduro makes downhill look like bad value for your money. Likewise, not everyone wants to go out and get absolutely wrecked on an enduro race. Like, the pros do, of course they do, but like value for money,
job when they get to train.
Value for money, like a down duro type thing, sick.
Enduro Fest was I'm not even going to say I'm not biased. I'm 100% biased to Maydena because that place is fucking awesome. But Enduro Fest was the best event I've ever been to. Ever.
Yeah, right.
It was sick. There was 2 stages a day. One was at the top, one was at the bottom. You got shuttled up. You'd do them as many times as you want. I was working, so I just did them once. It was the sickest, man. You got to hang out with your mates. Like it was like the enduro hanging out thing, but then you just got to bomb a proper run and not have to worry about the pedaling in between. And you make it as longer or chiller day as you want. Like kind of like pineapple, you know what I mean? But probably bigger stakes. Like it was 3 days.
Yeah. More difficult tracks.
Yeah. But like for that, like I wouldn't go there again with an Eagle cassette. I'd go there with a 7-speed. Like there's no point going with a big ass cassette.
Yep, for sure.
So that answers Ben Kilsby's question of why you put the Zeb on the Trinity instead of the stiffer box. So, but
there's multiple reasons, but the main reason was to fit a theme. And I think having a theme is cool. And like the other thing too, like if we just put a GX like an Axis GX dinner plate on it and whatever, it like, yeah, okay, it would be cool, but it's just going to be kind of another enduro bike. Like,
yeah.
You need to get that bike to like Sergio Leos. Like that's the dude you need to get that to, because that thing looks so BMX and I fucking love it. Like for that aesthetic, it's sick. Like the last one looked a bit BMX, but this is like BMX.
Yeah. Yeah, guys like Baxter and Remy and that are just frothing off their head.
Oh, Connor Griffin. Dude, he would absolutely shred the shit out of the bike.
His bike, eh? Like, yeah.
I can't believe how many people just glossed over the Access downhill derailleur mashup thing. Like, no one even looked at it. Like, what do you guys?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think it's kind of impractical, but it fits the purpose that way.
Yeah, be careful with that. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think it was just as much to give a bit of a nudge to SRAM to say, come on, you should make a Axis downhill derailleur, because they really should. They've got Axis everything else but a mini block.
Yeah, you can, like, I've got one. They don't make it. I made it. So if you want to, like, butcher 2 derailleurs and void warranty on 2 derailleurs, like, go nuts. Like, it's pretty easy, but I won't talk about it on here. But yeah,
for sure. I think we had discussed us borrowing that. I think
it was just really scratched up. Like it has like had a tough life.
It would have been really cool to do. I think I commented on replied to someone's comment on the Trinity page that asked about it. I'm like, I think it would have almost been a step too far, because you've got a custom frame. It obviously had some pretty wild custom stuff on it. That's all pragmatic, like, don't get me wrong. But the stuff that was that could be kept kind of OEM, I think it was cool to fit that theme, like I was saying. But
just as a note to everyone with that, like, don't do that at home.
Definitely don't.
I speak from experience because I tried it, and that road derailleur is great on the road. The problem is it's got a hydraulic clutch in it. So the fluid gets very, very hot, and the fluid gets very, very thin very, very quickly. And it also, you probably didn't see this on video, but like the mountain bike derailleurs just shift inward and outward, and then the offset's taken up with the guide pulley, whereas that one goes down and up as well. So it gets those forces going up and down, and the motor doesn't like that.
I think,
sure. Do you reckon, like, again, I haven't actually, like, I've ridden it around, but I haven't ridden it in a like done a full downhill run on or whatever. It'd be interesting to see what it actually handle, like, like on a slope style bike or something, whether it'd be good.
My rival one lasted 3 runs at Bright.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, right? Because like I got on a road bike and you'd be like, oh, like obviously there's a lot more forces. But you're like, oh, that thing's done like 10,000 Ks or whatever it was. Like that was my one was the test trailer. But yeah, I think it all makes sense because it doesn't have the override clutch thing either, which is like the pushing in. I think if it had that with the up and down, it would fuck the shifting for roadies. But if it had that would probably save it. But I think it's just like the on like the down up movement. But aside from that, it worked sweet. Like the shifting was sweet. The shifting was better, was faster than the Franken derailleur I have.
Like faster? Do you mean like snappier between gears, or? Yeah. See, I haven't got an Axis GX or anything at the moment, but so I had nothing to compare to. But that derailleur, to give people a bit of an idea, like the reason why we've got that derailleur is for the gearbox we've kind of been mucking around with for a couple of reasons. Like we wanted a short cage, and this was kind of before people had done the quote unquote Franken derailleur. So we wanted a short cage Axis. The other thing is being on the main frame and not taking up sort of that slappy suspension is, I think, being bolted on the main frame, I'd actually be really interested to see how long the fluid clutch would last.
And that's what we discussed before. And I reckon it would probably be sweet up the front. You know,
I reckon it'd be sweet.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say is, like, the very second that I bought it and kind of got it out of the box, I was surprised at how snappy it was. I was like, whoa, this thing's super reactive.
So with the road derailleurs, like if you sync it with just one shift, there's no front derailleur, it's faster than a 2x setup.
Yeah.
So when you have it to 2x, it's kind of waiting for that second paddle for like momentarily. Whereas when it goes to 1x, it's like for the whole time. It's sick. And then the same I don't know if it's the same, but like, I'm not sure if it's like when you link up the reverb or whatever, like it doesn't make it slower between having a reverb or not. But I just feel like the mountain bike stuff doesn't seem to go as quick. Maybe it's just the offset pulley. That's probably more it, to be honest. But yeah, whereas the road stuff, when you go to 1x mode, it's just like,
yeah.
I think the Axis downhill derailleur this is something I want to touch on, but it highlights the versatility of that bike. So you talked about the flip chip. So you can run 154 to 190 mil and pretty much any stroke or eye length, right?
Are you talking about the Trinity? You're talking about the Trinity?
Trinity, yeah.
So 155 up to 195.
Yeah. Then if you had a GX Eagle mech and a downhill mech and two cassettes, like you could pretty much have a downhill bike and an enduro bike without having to swap out any cables. Like that's so sick.
For sure. And like just to touch on a couple of changes is just last night, sort of I was chatting to Chase this morning and he was working on some stuff last night, or our last night, so their day in California. He's pretty well just done some tweaks to not really change the kinematics much at all, but to get 160 to 200 instead of 155 to 195 because look, optics is kind of a big thing, and I think just having the 200 figure for downhillers sort of means a lot. So it's likely to change from the 160 to 200.
Makes sense, right? Like if it's not 200, it's not a downhill bike.
Kind of,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like you'd always be like, if someone was like, "Oh, it's pretty good on a 190 bike," you know, no one's like, "Oh, it's pretty good on a 200 bike."
it might give people a poor excuse too, like, "Oh, I didn't win the race because I only had 195."
I had a question from Ben Cove, SC, local down here, but bit of a weird one, and so on. Tying to two questions. Do you think we've reached the pinnacle of carbon? No. And is that why you're using TI or titanium in your bike? And that's why we're seeing more steel and stuff from custom builders?
Who said we're using tire?
Well, I said steel as well, but there's a lot of roadies that are using tire.
Yeah.
And then I'll tie in as well, like from Perambulant, do you have to use different welding for the steel lugs, 3D printed lugs?
All right, so I'm going to leave the welding question alone because I think Nigel is probably best to answer that because he's kind of the welding guru. But I was there when he welded it, and I think the biggest thing and what we really try to do, and I've kind of highlighted this in a couple of posts, is we use like a proprietary metal in the prints. So the properties that make up the prints are very similar and very well matched to welding to chromo, pretty well as ideally matches what you could get. So he did nothing crazy. Nigel's a bit of a gun TIG welder, like I'll let him handle that with purging the frame and all that type of stuff and using big cups and all that. But short answer is no. Back to the question about carbon and that. I reckon we've actually talked about this maybe before, but I think that like carbon's great and it fits a purpose. It's wicked on a lot of bikes, whatever. I just think that other materials haven't been utilized to their full potential yet. When you look at the way kind of the bike industry went as a whole, I'm not going to say like obviously like certain categories moved at different rates. Like road cycling, for instance, I think like competitive road cycling, I think carbon's a no-brainer. It's a little bit like BMX racing. Like if it's light and stiff, then it's for most part going to be faster. If you want to go into the comfort thing and all that, then it's another topic. But yeah, I think that within mountain biking, I think a lot of brands went to carbon without kind of exploiting the potential of of past gone materials, and like there's plenty of reasons why, like, you know, cost and development of materials and all that type of stuff. Yeah, for sure. Because the thing is like a carbon frame for us to produce is extremely expensive, but a carbon frame for Trek to produce, like if they're doing whatever, a couple of 100,000 units a year, it's actually a very cost-effective way to do it, because you make one mold and then you're just pumping them out. Whereas like even like an alley frame, if you're notching and metering every single connection, like it's a fair bit to go into it.
I heard the cost of a S-Works frame once from a very reliable source in Taiwanese manufacturing, and it actually blew me away with how little one of those frames cost.
Oh, it's crazy, dude. It's the R&D and the warranty and stuff you're paying for, right? Like,
well, warranty for specialized costs a lot. I mean,
for sure. You know, but like I remember someone when I was teaching Stu was like, "Why do you ride Giants?" And I was like, "Well, I genuinely think Giants are a good bike. I don't ride Giants anymore. I think they're a really good bike. They're not like super boutique or niche or anything, but as just a standard bike, they do a good job. But they have a bulk load of R&D, and if I have a problem in that frame, it'll get warranted. You know what I mean? Like, and that's, I think, the biggest part. Like at the end of the day, most of those frames cost the same. Most of those frames are made in the same place. They just, all those brands, like I think there's 2 or 3 major carbon facilities, and it's like they all have their own little space. So it's like, you know, you get the guy every now and again in the shop who's like, they're all made in the same factory. And like, yeah, they kind of are, but like they have their own like quality control. And you can see that internally in the frames, right? Like if you have like the cheaper brands, you look internally and you're like, oh, there's a lot of like material there. And then you look at like the nicer frame and you're like, oh, that's way better. And it's like, they're probably made in the same factory. So like, yeah, like I think a lot of the stuff you pay for with that is the brand. There's the brand, right? So like, you know, you can joke about how many hundreds of dollars each letter costs with whatever brand. And then there's R&D, and then there's the warranty and the support and the staff who support that. So I get it. But yeah, carbon wouldn't be crazy expensive once that mold's paid off.
True. Yeah, and I think like it comes down, like if you want to add another layer onto it, of course, it comes down to it comes down so much to the business model of the company too. Like, and I think this is where you see Commensal sticking with aluminium. Like, for one, I think that they think that they can create a better bike out of aluminium, which is like a fair point, whatever. But I think one of the main reasons they've stuck with aluminium, particularly for like the Commensal Markov team, like or whoever of the current days, their sort of major sponsor, just say like their World Cup downhill team, is because with an alloy, with a business model built around making alloy bikes, like those guys can R&D so quickly between seasons and can basically bring out a whole nother bike, and it wouldn't have cost the company anywhere near what it would have cost if they're now making all new molds. Because once you've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars per mold for carbon, like you don't want to have to update that thing for a couple of years, because otherwise it's going to cost you a lot of money.
I gotta say as well, like with metal, like I feel, and I've ridden a lot of carbon bikes and I like the weight side of it, but I feel metal's consistent, and I've had a lot of the same bike, you know what I mean? And I'm like, this ride's really different to that one, and everything's the same. And I don't know if like the layup's done a bit differently on each bike, or like if like that piece wasn't layered that way as opposed to that way, or if it's the amount of resin or the amount of holes or whatever it is. But like, I just feel like metal does ride consistently too, which is really nice. Like that's a really nice quality on my end.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm no carbon expert, so I won't try to make out like I am, but I do know that like you can dramatically change the characteristics of how carbon will act by changing its layup and its structure and all that stuff. Even if you pre-tension it, you know, that's got a lot to do with it as well.
We had a mate who had, this is a really weird story, but I won't get into detail too much, but a guy I used to know had drop foot, like couldn't pick his foot up. We were making like carbon fiber braces for his foot when like he was overseas and we were at home, and like and it was mainly Chris, one of my mates, but I was helping with it. Like, it was crazy the difference in how long one would last versus the other for what we thought was the same thing, you know what I mean? And that was like literally made in an oven, so it was sketchy. But I mean, like, you can imagine the same thing for some dude in a factory. Like, that guy doesn't give a fuck about your ride quality in the day. Like, there was a lot of difference, yeah.
For sure. And like without trying to sort of go down the Trinity kind of bandwagon, but it, like, the V1 frame, which like we really didn't put that much time and effort into, to be honest with you. Like, we got a few weeks out from Handmade last year and we're like, all right, let's just pull the trigger and go and piece it together. But I was surprised how natural it felt on the trail. And that was the first steel front end downhill bike I'd ever ridden. But it did, like you were saying, Lockie, like with the consistency of metal frames to begin with, whether it's aluminium or steel or whatever. But it did. It kind of felt like the BMX days. Like, I used to have I had a couple, but like I had a chrome moly race frame, and that was really good. Like, it was the nicest feeling race frame that I ever had, but it flexed a little bit too much for BMX racing. And a little bit, like I was saying before, I think like with road cycling, as far as competitive road cycling, and a little bit the same with BMX, I think we've kind of got to the point that everyone's kind of sold on carbon. Like, it's super light and it's super stiff. And you can't argue with that, because like every watt that isn't wasted through frame flex is propelling you down the road. So the 4130 race frame that I had was super, super nice, but it just flexed a little bit too much. I never owned a carbon race frame, but I rode a couple and they were good, but they felt like tingy, like for lack of a better term, they felt tingy, like you could hear the rocks.
They don't spring back.
Down tube. Yeah, it was, you could, yeah. Anyway, but they were good. Aluminium was kind of like a happy medium for me anyway. Like, it was really stiff. It was really light, whatever. But as a comparison, for instance, like, I thought about this sort of analogy when I was riding the Trinity for the first time. I'm like, fuck, man, like, I rode so many different alloy race frames and they all felt good on the racetrack. They felt familiar, whatever. But no matter how familiar it felt, I could never imagine taking that thing to a skate park. Like, it would feel so dodgy, like so dodgy. Whereas I remember I took the race frame dirt jumping one time and it just felt like shit. And let alone like taking it to a skate park. And I was thinking the same thing about downhill. I was like, fuck, like, you know, aluminium's got its place for sure, but like, I just know heuristically like how much a BMX frame changes between alloy and chromo, and like the stuff that you're riding on downhill, like, it's a lot of the time it's really harsh. You want a bit of flex, like you do at a skate park, like whatever. I'm not sort of beating the drum of steel in any way. I just think like, yeah, there's so many positives and negatives of other stuff, and I think it's really hard for a brand to sit there and say like carbon is the best for X reason, because there's just so many variables in it.
But back to that whole margin thing, right? You've got to market your product. I get what you mean. Like, I think for you guys, like with what you're doing, that there's no need to go carbon, even if you could and have a mold and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, if the weight's there and the ride characteristics there, then what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, carbon's cool, but like at the end of the day, I don't think it's the be all and end all that everyone's made it out to be.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point, I guess, for the question, Darren. I think that other materials haven't been exploited as much as what they could have, particularly in a discipline like downhill that's grown so rapidly. Like road cycling, like they figured it out 10 or 15 years ago, I guess, when stuff started to come in at carbon. Like, I know there's been developments like disc and all that type of stuff, but pretty well they figured it out 10, 15 years ago. Whereas downhill, like it's developing so fast. Whereas, I remember like a company called Johnny Chopper. They came out with a BMX race frame like 2007, 2008 or something. Maybe it was a bit later than that. But anyway, they actually ended up going bust, but they were an Australian company, and I always wanted one of their frames because as far as I know anyway, like there are probably other companies that did it, but they were doing hydroformed 4130. and it looked fucking wild. Like, it costs a lot of money to do whatever, but that's just an example of like, you know, yeah, you can certainly find new ways of doing things with an older technology to produce a certain outcome.
Well, I mean, even on the roadside, you look at like Specialized and their alloy with their SL frame, like the hydroform super lightweight alloy crit racing bike.
Those bikes are sick, man. Still the best roadie I've ever owned. LA, so good for crit racing.
The best.
Right.
Yeah. I just don't know if carbon ever came out for downhill that actually. I don't know if it was ever the material brought into downhill for ride quality. I could be wrong. I've never made a downhill bike, but like I kind of feel it just followed suit with like everything else that came out at the time. You know what I mean? And there was always talk of like, oh, it flexes and does this and that and it starts resonating and all that kind of stuff. But then I've had negative effects of that resonation of forces through carbon bikes. So
you've got to remember too, like the other thing is, let's just say, for example, I'm just pulling shit out, like just pulling stuff out here, but like, let's just say you're a company like Canyon, right? And you're pumping out hundreds of thousands of road bikes a year, and they come into the mountain bike market like they did 5 years ago or whatever. And they're putting in an order from Toray of 7,000 series carbon fiber. It's like, well, why are we going to go down this other route of making our main frames out of this other material when we can just add on a couple of percent to that Toray order and bring it in? We can change a mold a little bit or make a new mold or whatever, and it adds just a couple of percent to their overall budget, and then they got a mountain bike genre. So yeah, there's so much like you could just go so deep, but I think that's a lot to it as well. Like these companies like Specialized, Canyon, whatever. Just to put in a bigger order from their carbon manufacturer for a couple of percent, it's going to be a bit easier than starting from scratch on something else.
Carbon still and will be the fancy word, you know what I mean? Like you get it with people who aren't from the bike industry, like carbon fiber. Like it's this amazing magical material. I'm not saying it isn't, but you know what I mean? I think it's also got like that marketing term to it, you know what I mean? So
like thermoplastic.
Yeah, I'm not into the skate world, so again, I won't try to be. But from what a couple of friends of mine who were in the skate world have said is that certain companies or whatever tried carbon skateboards, and a lot of pros were like, "Nah, shit! Like I just want my wood, want my wood one." And it's the same with surfing too. Like there are carbon boards that are good. My housemate makes carbon boards, and they're sick, but if there was really something to them, every single guy on the CT would be on a carbon surfboard. And, you know.
It's funny, like Mello Baumeister, he won't have a problem with me saying this. He had Baumeister wheels and helped with the Crank Brothers synthesis wheels and is a carbon expert. He's now making
wood campers.
Yeah. Like,
they're sick.
Yeah. And he says it's the best fiber in the world. Like it's natural carbon fiber and it works really well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And they are sick. I can't remember what the company's called, but I think Friday Campers.
Something like that. Yeah.
I'll give them a little shout out. Yeah. Friday Trailer Company. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about taking that down a rabbit hole, Darren. I don't know. I hope that answers Ben's question.
I told you we should have called the podcast Down the Rabbit Hole. Be way better because that's literally the point.
Yeah. It was going to change, but someone got lazy and never got around to it. Had lots of shit happening. On a separate note from the Handmade Bicycle Show, Charlie Petchel, our super fan, would like to know what your favorite bike was at the show. Outside of the Trinity.
I hate to be cliche, but I tell you, like, Bastions are pretty cool, eh?
Yeah.
They're really, really cool.
I'm not into them, eh?
Man, I am. Yeah.
Like, unless you're racing like track cycling at the Olympics, I mean,
Well, we won't go there.
Don't go there. That's mean.
No,
Okay.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. For whatever reason, I understand your viewpoint, Lockie. I'm a big fan. I reckon they've done a couple of things that's really cool. I like their backstory. Like the guys, I think they worked at Holden, like they were engineers at Holden, and they spent their redundancy packages or whatever on founding the company. At least that's kind of what I've heard. I do like the fact, for whatever reason, it's just my eye. I think that like the oversized down tube, like 2.5 inch or whatever it is, I just think there's something real cool about that. But anyway, I'm not saying I would necessarily own one. Like they're pretty glitzy and glammy, but yeah, I like them a lot.
That was the bike I dropped off tonight to Peter, the guy I was talking about before he gave me desserts, which were amazing.
Was that the polished and blue one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, bike looked incredible, man. Like, no, it's purely an aesthetic thing for me. Like, I just don't like. I just feel they kind of all look the same. But this is like a first world problem. You know what I mean? Like, but I have full respect for what they do. I think it's awesome that they're on the track slapping. I think it's awesome they're trying to make new shit for sure. And I do like the brand. But yeah, just in terms of like look, like I think honestly, my first favorite mountain bike would be Trinity. The Born hardtail, just because I got to see that and speak to Darren about that. Like the fit on that was pretty awesome. Like that's Darren's bike. It's got a 500 mil reach on that thing. Like Darren's tall, but he's not that tall. But then when he showed me like all the photos and videos of him on the fit jig, and he's like, well, that's what fits me. And I was like, fuck. And he's building a bike based around power output for like XC World Cup. Not that he's going to do that, but it's built for him for that. I was like, that's like, speaking of themes, like that's cool. Like, he wants the most performance bike for the rider, which was sick. And then my favorite roadies there, like by far, would either be the Borms. Like I reckon my 40th, I'm going to buy a Borm. All the Provas, like Prova, what Mark does with like the carbon tube and like the polished at the top. Those are sick. And then Mark's just an awesome dude. Like it's just
he is, yeah. He's a really nice guy. He chatted to us a fair bit and was passing off knowledge and whatever that I was like, dude, you don't have to be telling us this. Like this is industry accrued knowledge that not everyone would want to kind of give away.
He's just really nice.
Like, yeah, we're pretty like, I don't know, like we know what we're doing at Trinity, but we're kind of, you know, we built 2 frames and one out of 3D printed lugs, whereas those guys are experts in 3D printed stuff. And he was really cool to give us some time. So yeah, appreciate
a lot of time for Mark. I lent him my wheels off my gravel bike and realised on the Friday that they weren't dished normally. They were off my bloody Cannondale. They were AI.
That's right. I did see that. Yeah.
That was awful. I felt real bad. I'm like, I'm real sorry, dude. You just got to run this for tonight and I'll do it tomorrow morning. I'll bring it back. But sorry, Mark, if you're listening.
I would like to give a shout to an old friend of mine who I've known for a long, long time. Really since I was a kid, I don't like since I was 10 or so, but Dane Anderson, who's part of Paradigm Bikes, they were there. They had the BMX there.
Oh, I saw that. That looks sick. The one with the steer, like a proper steer shoe, and the stem was like lowish on it, like all. Yeah.
I think they were the only BMX there. I think.
Yeah.
But I certainly don't want to make it a BMX show, but I definitely have respect for the BMX crowd and whatever, and particularly people kind of stepping outside the norm in the BMX world, because it did always kind of amaze me, like with the introduction of like the Olympics with BMX and the tracks changing so much and 8 meter hills and all that, but the bikes have pretty well stayed the same. And if you look at like downhill hasn't changed that much, but the bikes have changed so much. And I think what they're doing with Paradigm Bikes is really, really cool. And they've got some good ideas. So yeah, I mean, like as an example, and again, I won't take it down this hole, but like BMX head angles have always kind of, they haven't changed really at all. Lengths have changed. But yeah, I mean, if you've got a massive roll in, then you can afford to rake it out a little bit and whatever. And they're looking at stuff like that. And I think they're kind of the first people. And I am really encouraging to go further with it because I think they need to. And in my opinion, they're the first guys to really think about this type of stuff in BMX, but they're talking about like ride fitting, like what Bormy does, but for like BMX purposes. And I think that, I think it's really cool.
That's the next thing, man. Like that is 100%. This can be a rant. That's the next thing. Like, and all I could think of after going to that Born facility was like having a bike. And I don't know how you do it, but it's like, I remember someone saying with like the Santa Cruz, like the B10 a few years ago, set up Greg's bike, like based on some scales for like the gradient of the track, or like with Marshy. But it's like, that is the way to do it. Like, imagine you get yourself on a bike. Like I might weigh the same as you, Mick, say as an example, but our flexibility and shit's all different. You get someone on a jig, you get some scales, you're like, cool, we're going to balance this bike out for this track. Like that's the next level of downhill, and that's like custom fit. It doesn't have to be just for a specific gradient. It can be over a range, but like everyone's so different, man. And like road, you look at road and there is like 9 to 12 sizes per brand. And then you look in mountain biking and then you might have 4. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy, you know what I mean? But it's just what we're used to. You make it fit. It's the same thing with the stem conversation, Mick. Like we're all making changing our stems, which is changing our steering to change the reach of the bike. Whereas realistically, you probably should be changing the top tube length to change the reach and keep the stem, in my eyes, the same to keep consistent steering. Like it's
100%.
Interesting. So I reckon the custom thing is, when Atherton bikes came out, I was like, this is it. We're on. This is happening. Like custom done.
For sure. And I think like, again, not trying to beat the Trinity drum, but that's kind of the main reason, because we've always talked about custom sizing. And realistically, like for a small company, the only way to do that is through 3D printed lugs, because you can program in those changes so easily without metering and notching differently.
Yeah, because you were saying you've got to change the 3D printed parts, don't you? Not the actual tubes. Are you saying that?
Yeah. And you don't even need to change all the 3D printed parts. Like we've got 4, and within a certain bandwidth, of course, you can't go out to a 600 mil reach and still have it work. But like, you can. So at the moment, like we've got sizes around a small, medium, large, extra large, and we can tweak only 2 of those prints to tweak it within the bandwidth of the next size, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And we kind of got it set up in CAD, so we don't need to redesign the head tube every time. It's like you can just plug in a number and it'll morph to that size while still keeping the strength integrity. So I think that's really cool, and I think it'll be a good thing for us too. And it kind of gives what you were saying, it's kind of what the mountain bike community deserves, to be honest with you. Like
100%, especially for downhill and enduro. I'm not saying XC doesn't, but I mean, like, I don't know. I just think I'm so used to road that I'm like, why isn't this happening? You know what I mean? Like, like
it's the same reason. Like we went for like a ZS 56. It's like, well, with that you can whack in angle sets or reach adjust, which I think is really important. Well, not necessarily with a straight steerer, because you got a tapered steerer, but with downhill forks you can do it. I think, like obviously a lot of guys muck with that, but even that's kind of underrated.
I think that should be the standard. Like I love how Specialized and Canyon have those reach adjusts stock now. I understand there's probably a lot of people, much the same as high speed and low speed rebound and compression, would get lost and it'll fry their brains, or they might not get a better ride out of it. But like if you test it properly, try it out, like you'll get a better fit for yourself. You know what I mean? Like I think those geometry flip chips and movement pieces are the necessity. Like, I think they'll just become more and more popular, and I think it's for the betterment of everyone's riding. I think that's way more better than more clickers.
Yeah, I think, and again, I'm not going to try to pretend to be any geo expert, but I think you're 100% right. I think like geometry is way more important than clickers, as an example. Like no matter if your frame doesn't fit, no form of suspension clickers is going to make you feel good.
No, but then a lot of people are adjusting their suspension to maintain X geometry. You know what I mean? So it's like, imagine you just don't have that problem. And then the springers get to do whatever they want, and then the bike's in the right place for the person.
Crazy theory.
Crazy.
Did you guys get to see that Oren gravel bike there, belt drive?
Nah, I didn't. I actually had given him some tires from James from Goodyear, but No, I didn't get a chance. He seemed rad though.
Man, that thing looks
I
cool.
did see that.
That's like the ultimate quirk. Integrated handlebars, fat tires, and a roll-off belt drive.
I didn't get to that side of the show at all, to be honest.
Yeah. How big is the show?
Oh, it's decent. Like, it's not huge. Yeah. It's just like, because like we were a bit understaffed a couple of days. So like if I was walking to the front, I'd just walk to the front. Like we had Tam there. I don't know if Tam from my team listens, but like shout out to Tam. She worked in like, I don't know what, it's not a Lederhosen, like wherever those like German dresses are. She worked in that Friday, Saturday. And like if I got asked for that for work, I would tell people to get fucked. So like she was the MVP. So I just like going down there, make sure she's like got food and drinks and that kind of stuff. And that was walking past Mick Stand. But it's long. Like the Seaworks is, I don't know, maybe like 75 meters long.
Yeah, right.
So who was the guy that runs it? What's his name again? Sorry.
Nathan,
that's right. So he was saying to us that on Friday night from last year anyway, they were expecting 3,000 people through the door, which is pretty good in a confined space. Like, yeah, it's packed.
And I didn't get COVID, so that was really good.
Yeah.
Mm. I'm immune to it, so it's all good. I can go wherever I want.
I think I'm the same, man. I haven't got it. But yeah, it's big. It's like 75 meters long and then probably like 30 meters wide. And then
it's kind of a bit of an L shape, hey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The battle axe kind of thing. Yeah. It's a really cool space. It's way better than the last place. It was called the Meat Market, and it was like an old meat market. But it's really dark and there wasn't a lot of natural light. So like they got lighting in and like it was cool, but this is like a bit more open. And then the weather was a bit shit Sunday. So you wouldn't have seen the nice weather Saturday. But Saturday had a really nice weather. And out the back, there's like a view of like the bridge and everything. And it goes out onto the water. It's really cool. So like there's like an outside.
Because I lived in Melbourne for 3 years and I never even really knew that Williamstown existed until I went to Handmade last year, and I was like, fucking hell, if I had known this place existed, this is where I would have lived. Like,
dude, I worked 10 minutes away in Altona, like, and I only realized I went to the show last year, but I hadn't been there, so I drove there in the dark. I didn't realize Williamstown existed until 6 months ago, and I've been going to Altona. Altona is a shithole. Like, it's the shittest place. I hate it. Like, I feel a bit depressed every time I go there. And then Williamstown is 5 minutes away. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, now me and Riley from work going like Mexican down there all the time. It's amazing. But yeah, I didn't know it existed either. Like, hidden gem.
I did. I actually knew it existed. I lived in Altona for like 3 months.
No fucking way.
Yeah. Fucking sucked.
Worst 3 months of your life. Yeah.
Sick RSL though. Real wild RSL.
That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Probably some really good ice there too, but you know, I'm just not into it.
You weren't then. But the Williamstown's sick. Yeah. That whole like vibe is down there. But Altona.
Yeah. Book it in next year, Darren, for sure. It's good.
Yeah.
And anyone else listening, if you frequent the area of Melbourne, I would I'd suggest having a look. It's pretty cool. And it's real cheap too. So
I'm definitely staying there next Friday night in a hotel somewhere nearby. So Darren, let's do it.
Oh, let's do it, Darren.
I'll bring the lube.
Hey, the gutter. I'm saying we can share a hotel room, maybe not bed now, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Do something. Yeah.
I've shared a room with Darren Lockie. He snores.
I do. Sorry.
I can sleep through. Yeah, I can sleep anywhere. I'm one of those dudes who like sleeps on a plane for like 8 hours. Like I'll sleep anywhere. You can snore as long as you want. I won't hear shit.
Let's move on to the next subject while we're talking about me snoring.
Let's.
Toolboxes. We've actually had a few people asking about these. So,
sick. Can I go get some props and you guys talk for a second?
Yeah.
Sure. As long as
I was going to be in the workshop, but it's too cold. We're back.
What would you say are the like crazy special tools you need to make a frame? Like, is there anything really that hard or specific that you need?
Yeah. Again, it depends on the frame. Like if you're making a carbon frame compared to a steel frame, it's going to change a lot because the carbon frame, you're going to use molds. Like the frame that we made, 100%, like the jig's the most important thing. And it's the old adage, measure twice, cut once, and I'm talking measure like 1,000 times, because we had that thing dialed. Like, yeah, just want to make sure it's right, because once you start welding, you fucked. And particularly when you're doing it the night before the show, you want to make sure it's right. So yeah, as far as like the most important tool, the jig is really important. Like, we're making our own sort of proprietary jig that I think we definitely want to kind of show off, because I think that, look, it might have been done before, but I think it's a lot of, like, it's something that a lot of people don't really understand, is like the jigging process of a frame. But not only that, like, you can buy kit jigs online and stuff, but we kind of want to build the ultimate jig, and this thing will be CNC'd out of billet alloy and that, and like with like cam clamps and all that type of shit. So it'll be pretty fucking wild. And it's something we really want to cover. And I think Nigel wants to do like a bit of a doco about it, so other people can build their own jig, but also kind of see what goes into it. And something that we're talking about is basically having that whole jig on like a gyroscope, so you can basically sit there with the welder and just kind of grab part of the gyro and spin it around and get like right underneath things and whatever. Whereas the jig that we've got at the moment is like static; it kind of stands up vertically, which is all well and good. But if you're banging out a heap of frames, then it's probably not going to be the most efficient thing.
Have you been to Baum yet? Because I'm pretty sure his jigs have a lot of that shit, like not full gyroscopic, but movable. Yeah,
so we are going to go out to Baum and sort of have a bit of a chat to him and suss out his operations and that. I don't know. Other than that, I think the most important thing, other than a jig to make sure everything's true and your angles are right, is really a lathe. Like, you know, the lathe's pretty handy, because there's always shit that doesn't work out and whatever. Like a lot of our hardware was, I spent probably a week beforehand, like not a whole week, but like intermittent times during like a week, just lathing up custom hardware. So like all that will be sorted in the long run. But if you're going to build a one-off, then yeah, I think a lathe certainly comes in handy.
I wish I had a lathe just for shits and giggles.
Same, man. I just want to make bulk tokens.
You can buy little bench lathes for not that expensive. It depends what you want to do on them. Like, not going to do any heavy industry, but little bench lathes are pretty handy.
Yeah, definitely think it would come in handy for those tokens, like those half tokens.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, just heaps of shit in general. Just like, I'd get so into it.
Yeah.
And see my girlfriend ever again. It's like, what are you doing on this lathing shit?
Yeah, so like just before this call, actually, I was watching this.
Apple with it. Sorry.
Dude, I was watching this Insta video, and this guy was just making eccentric shapes on his lathe for no purpose. It was just really art. But it was like he was very well, like he's a good lathe operator. But yeah, I don't know. He was just making the most random shit. Yeah. Anyway.
So let's say there was, Lockie's back now, he's got his props. Let's say there's two types of toolboxes. There's obviously more, but you've got like your standard toolbox that like Mick's going to use and most general people are going to use. I've seen Mick's toolbox. It does the job.
Man, it's a shit show.
I was trying to be polite, man. And then you got like,
I've actually got it. It's basically for those. It's like a Pelican case. It's actually pretty cool because it's like it's bomb proof, but it's like a Pelican case, probably a little bit bigger than a shoebox. Everything's padded inside and whatever, but yeah, everything's just chucked in there. It's not that neat, but it does the job.
Whereas then you got the full workshop, the full race mechanic setup, like Lockie's multiple different setups. I think you got 2 or 3.
I got two boxes plus the workshop, and I'm probably more from like the Mick thing of like chucking shit in a box, but with maybe a little bit more neatness than like it just being chucked in a box.
I would say a lot more neatness.
But then I just bought an Abbey box, but so this is the original toolbox when I started at Schramm, and this is a Nipex box. So much the same with the Pelican case. But there's just spots you can put everything, but it's not like the foam cutout thing, right? So like, I think, you got 3 different levels of box, right? You got those beginner boxes, and I think like Park Tool stuff's really good for that. Like, it's a really good place to start. They do like some nice basic ones, not like the whole big box. And then I think this is kind of like the next level. And to be honest, like I still kind of prefer this box in a lot of ways for everything. Like everything's in this. Like I have brake bleed kit, full rear shock, like pencil case full of stuff, everything. Whereas like the Abbey box, which I love, doesn't have like everything. And then you kind of like locked in to like where the shit is. Like I've added spaces into this, but like I'm going to have a second box for like rear shocks and forks. So yeah, I'm definitely, don't get preoccupied with thinking you need to have the fancy box to be a mechanic. Just go get the Pelican case and whack the tools in. And then that's going to mean you can go ride your bike faster. Like go and do that. Like that's kind of why I want to do these out. Like these things look cool and they look great on Instagram, but like at the end of the day, a 5 mil is going to do the exact same job as any other fucking 5 mil for the most part, unless it's like really shit 5 mil. But like, I wouldn't worry too much about the box and the foam and the cutouts. Buy some nice quality tools. Like, you know, doesn't have to be Abbey, but like buy nice quality, whether it be Ware, Allen keys or whatever. Have a good quality tool. And if you don't have the money or the time or the patience to do the foam stuff, don't fucking worry about it. Just get a nice box. I recommend that Nipex one because there's places for stuff so it doesn't get damaged. And off you go. Like, you know, at the end of the day, I know a lot of people with really neat toolboxes and they're fucking shit mechanics. I also know really good mechanics who have nice neat boxes. And I know really good mechanics who have boxes they chuck stuff in, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter what box you have, but there are some good solutions out there.
Yeah, I like your point about good quality tools. And I think that's really important too. Like, yeah, I think good quality tools is probably the most important thing over how good the box is. Like, don't get me wrong, good box is great. 100%. But even for instance, like that bleed bucket that Kilsby made me, I really appreciate that because I know, like I was saying, I don't have the most organized box and maybe it's part of my fault. But the point is I can take my bleed kit kind of anywhere with me because I know the bucket's not going to get fucking squished. Because, for those that don't notice, it's like a milled or lathe bleed bucket. It's really nice. It's just simple shit like that. I get a lot out of.
Like your brand wise, like Nipex. If you're getting cutters or pliers, Nipex is the way to go. 100%. Like you'll never get anything better than the Jesus pliers, which are these puppies.
Yes. Yeah.
Those things are sick, and like you know, you can forego buying a whole spanner set really if you're careful with that, and that's like I think $250 ish, like retail. But like you don't have to buy like a 6 mil spanner up to that does a reverb collar at max. Yeah. So like that will save you over buying a whole bunch of spanners if you need to. If it's specialty tool stuff, like Abbey's good, but like there's some stuff you don't need, and like Pat's gonna hate me say that, but like this pedal wrench, I use that all the time, and this one's actually my old one that I put in the new box. I've had that for 5 years. Awesome for events because like you've got everyone who has every brand of pedal, and you're like, I'll just put one thing. But like at the end of the day, it's just a 15 mil spanner, a 6 mil, and 8 mil. But then things like the hanger tool, like that's definitely worth investing in an Abbey one, like or Unua I think is pretty good as well. I wouldn't really bother with the Park. The Park ones can eat a bag. Having used them a lot, that's not just like being pretentious. But like cassette tool and chain whip, you know, you could probably use any brand for that. The chain breaker is good, but possibly if I do SRAM stuff all the time, so that's worth it to go Abbey because it does the axis chains properly.
Yeah, true.
You need to be careful because a lot of them don't. But then like just, I don't know, like I've got a really good tool guy in the city and like nothing else I really have any brand allegiance to. I'm just like, hey, I need this. What do you recommend? He's like, yeah, this is cool. We got some nice little diamond files. I'm like, what do you recommend? He's like, just the cheap ones because you like they'll wear out. I'm like, cool noise. You know, like you don't need a lot of that stuff. A good pipe cutter I think is worth it over a hacksaw. Like go buy I've got a really nice Milwaukee pipe cutter. I think they're worth it if you just work on mountain bikes. You use pro bikes. You need a hacksaw. And I've got one of those burring tools.
Those things are sick. Yep.
Those things are sick. So with that, if you're going to buy one of those, you don't need it. You can use a file. But if you're going to buy that, I got mine from Amazon. It was $68 and it was like 2 months freight. And it was like half the price of anything in Australia, which was good. If you're going to do the foam thing, the foam, I had a lot of people ask when I did my toolboxes in the workshop, it's Kaizen foam is the brand.
Yeah.
So it's a layered foam. It's the same foam that's in this. And this is why you can add like cuts and stuff into it. So like, what have I added onto this level? So like my pick that's there, I've just added in. So you just outline the foam and it's layered. So you outline it, cut in, and then you just peel it out. Really quick and easy. Whereas I've seen a lot of people use like other foams, like those tiles and stuff for the ground. And like, I have no idea how you cut that out unless there's a base on it. There's no base on this. You just outline and off you go. I got mine from a woodworking place locally-ish in COVID. And just make sure you buy their Stanley knife because their Stanley knife cuts the best.
Yeah, okay.
Pelican boxes are good. Nipex boxes are good. This is a Pelican in the Abbey box. If you're looking for a set that does everything and you don't have tools already, like the Abbey tool set's like $3,000, maybe a bit more. But if you actually break down everything you buy,
it's ridiculous.
It's really worth it. Like I think the Hag there is like 500 bones by itself. But it's all there and like ready to go, which is sick. I think at the end of the day, like if you don't have the money, don't worry about the box. Just go buy a shitty toolbox from Bunnings. Like even like, like the kid ones, which are like long and like skinny, and just go buy like good Allen keys. Like I would recommend Wera. Silka stuff's really good for Allen keys. Good hanger tool. Good bleed kit is a big one. Shram for Shram. Shimano for Shimano. Jaguar make good ones too. Jaguar makes everyone's bleed kits anyway. A good ratchet.
Yeah.
Good ratchet's a massive one. Snap-on's good. Wera's good. I don't know what the hell my one was actually. I bought this online like in COVID because I couldn't get anything. Action. It's black and it's cool. It's little. Which is sick. And then some Nipex stuff. Anything else? It's like a good pick. A good metal pick's good. Sharpen one of those out from a spoke. If not EVT, make a nice pre-made one.
Dentist picks on Amazon are the best.
Yeah.
$30.
And I reckon that's about it with the toolbox thing. So just don't think you have to get fancy. And like, I feel like a dick buying the fancy toolbox. So I've always been like, I don't need the fancy toolbox kind of guy. Like I usually run a tool wrap. I love a tool wrap. But it's just kind of handy. It's all there. That being said, that doesn't mean I'm neat when I'm working on bikes. It means everything is still everywhere. It's a brothel on the table. I just have somewhere to put the stuff back to when I know I haven't lost it.
That actually kind of blew me away when I saw you working at Nationals or at other things. Like his stuff's all neat when it's on Instagram, but then like you look at the bench and there's shit everywhere.
I've always been when I'm working on shit, like I've always been so messy. And like only thing I can say to that is I just clean up after every job. You know, so you don't leave like a brass key out of a reverb and the main piston out of a air shock. You know what I mean? Like I just neaten up at the end, but I've never been neat when I'm working on shit. You know what I mean? And if anyone's ever seen any videos or photos I put up when I'm working on shit, there's shit everywhere. Like I wish I could be neat when I'm working on stuff, but I kind of just get that stuck into it that I just clean up after. So that's why I don't mind the foam stuff for after, because I make sure it's neat after. Yeah.
We had a question from, I think it's Jorge Barb or Jorga Barb, but what would you consider when you're building your own toolbox? So when you're building that, say when you've got a roll or that foam box, or whether you're just throwing it in like Mick or the tool trays, like was there anything you considered around that when you're building your custom one?
Firstly, actually, just one sec. Also, instead of a toolbox, tool wraps are sick. And the tool wrap I have is from Outdoor Extremes, and it's $35 from WA, which is awesome. Really cheap. What do I consider? The Abbey one, I kind of wanted something neat, and I had my Nipex box for 5 years and just wanted a bit of a change, but I wanted something I could take to road events. It looked a bit neater. I think with any box, you still need the freedom to customize it. And whether that be just having a big enough box, you have space to add stuff, or something like the Abbey one where you can have the bottom layer, you can do what you want. I think that's really key. Just make sure you have room to grow in whatever box that you have. Don't buy something good enough for now, because everything you need will change.
How about you, Mick? Was there anything you considered, or you just like, I just want to throw all my shit in and leave?
Multifaceted question, I guess. Like I'll be the first. I'm obviously a consumer of bike products. Like I ride a lot, and I've always ridden a lot. And obviously make bike products, but I'm not a bike mechanic. Like I'll be the first to say, like I'm not a bike mechanic. I have worked on my own bikes a lot. But I guess if people want design, want inspiration on the best bike workshop and that type of stuff, I'm humble enough to say I'm probably not the best person to ask. But for me personally, probably because to second Lockie's point, like I'm not the cleanest person. I like things really clean. Like don't get me wrong, like I like things really orderly and whatever. And probably the reason why I fantasize about the idea of having things really orderly is because I'm not really orderly. So it's like the grass is always greener type thing. So my default has always been to kind of have a relatively large toolbox and just chuck a whole heap of shit in, and I guess out of trial and error work out what I need and what I don't need. And yeah, my toolbox hasn't really changed that much. I guess the biggest change it would have done is when I started racing mountain bikes compared to BMX, because BMX you don't need anything really. Like my BMX toolbox was tiny. But yeah, I don't know. Like I do have two of quite a few things. So like, for example, I have two shock pumps. So one shock pump lives in the toolbox that I take to the races and take training and whatever. One shock pump lives in the workshop. Same as tire gauges. Like I have two tire gauges, same thing. I have two bleed kits as well for the same reason. Even Allen keys. Like I have two sets, mainly because like when I want to reserve the riding toolbox for riding and the work tools for work tools. The other other than getting them lost and confused and that, the other thing too is like the working tools, like the ones you take to the races and whatever, get flogged out pretty quick comparatively. Like they're sitting in the mud and shit like that. And I don't really want to get the workshop tools all jacked up. So I guess that's the only thing other than what Lockie's already covered that I personally do. And again, probably because I'm not the most orderly person. If I only had one set of everything, I'd be losing everything every single day. So having two of everything means I've most likely got something at all times. But yeah, I've just kind of been, chucking in my Pelican case. I like Lockie's point about having sort of room to grow. I certainly, like as an example, like when I went down to national champs at Maydena, I wanted to take more than just my Pelican case box because I wanted to take some spare springs and shit like that because I wanted to test a bunch of stuff. And instead of packing kind of like a proprietary like toolbox, again, for the reason of losing shit, I literally I've got wheel out cabinets here in the workshop, wheel out steel cabinets. And I was just like, it's kind of a luxury of having a ute, I guess. But I was like, fuck this, I'm just taking my whole cabinet. So I had so much fucking room. But dude, like a little bit off topic, but it was so good because if I swapped out springs or whatever, I had a drawer that I could just have springs in.
That's a dream, eh?
Just a cabinet.
Well, wait, so I even took I even took a set of different offset clamps as an example. Like, it got a little bit stupid, but I just had them sitting there. Like, I was like, oh, I've got the room. I'll just chuck in the whole cabinet. And a little bit off topic, but it got me out of trouble real good because I actually had a car breakdown there. Ronan Burke, I should probably thank publicly for sticking by me. But I had a car breakdown, but because I had the whole cabinet chest, I had parts to fix the car. How bloody good.
So mixed note, literally take the kitchen sink.
Next minute we rock up to a race and people are in their utes and they've just got a whole workshop just set up in the back of there.
Honestly, if you've got the room, I recommend it. It's always better to be over prepared than under.
With the whole space to move thing, like that's the biggest thing I experienced. And I remember Dylan told me it from Strand. I was going to a road event and I was like, oh, I'll ditch a bunch of stuff. He's like, don't ditch any of the shit out of there. Like, I'm ditching suspension stuff. He's like, because you'll get someone come in with some weird issue that you'll need that tool. You know what I mean?
Yes,
you don't have the room to grow. Yeah, you're always going to ditch the stuff you need. Like, what was the one the other day? When I was in Tassie, like the old school, not old school, but like the chainring bolt backing things, like what's the word for it? Like the little line tool.
Yeah.
And I was like, someone's like, oh, I need to tighten my chainring. And I was like, oh, look what I've got in here. It's sat in my toolbox for 6 years and I've never touched the thing because obviously the chain rings are a 5 and a 6. But if you didn't have the room to move, I would have fucked that thing off years ago, but then you kind of have it.
So on that very topic of that exact tool, I was fucking pissed a few years ago because it was actually while I was at uni, but I had a little toolbox. I actually think it was my brother's toolbox when we were kids, but I had this little toolbox and it was perfect. It was just like geometrically, it was just the perfect size for tools. It wasn't too big, wasn't too small. And I actually ended up getting it stolen while I was at uni. Don't know who took it, whatever, but it got jacked. But it was one of those things like you don't know what tools you need until you need them. Because I remember the thing I was most pissed off about, like I knew the obvious things, like obviously, like Torx wrenches, Allen keys, whatever. I was like, all right, I've got to go buy new ones of them. But the chainring tool, Lockie, I remember distinctly because like I'd only bought one a couple of months before the toolbox got jacked. And I was at the track, whether it be a race, I can't remember, but I was at the track and I needed that tool and I went to the new toolbox, started shuffling through stuff and I was like, oh, you're kidding. That would have been one of the things that got jacked. And it's like, you never know which tool you need until you need it. Yeah.
I was trying to find a picture of that, my old toolbox, which I stole from Barlin actually, but my old one was very similar to Aaron's, which was like the drawers.
Yeah. Yep.
And then like there's a top part and then the drawers and there's bars that stop the drawers. And I think that thing was like $100, $150. Like they're a good one too. It's an interim mix really between the cabinet and the toolbox.
Okay.
And his is like it's like a carbonate plastic, like a high density plastic.
Oh, really?
So it weighs like sweet fuck all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sick.
But it's
mine
real
was like
strong.
metal, but it was sick. I don't think I went overseas with it, but all the nationals I did with, I was working for Specialized. It's good.
Yeah, his is real cool.
I think something funny that I saw the other day, and it's kind of been a colloquial term between us now, but a little bit probably far-fetched for a bike race, but Nigel, like Engineer to Slide Nigel, who's part of Trinity, he he did World Time Attack in Sydney. I can't remember what went wrong now.
I watched all that. I know nothing about cars, but I know the thing.
Yeah, I can't remember what
like
actually went.
Flywheel or some wheel thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like because he fashioned up a dry sump to it, so it had an extra belt driving it. I think it was something with that might have gone. But in any case, needed to lay something up and end up finding a lathe or whatever. But what's become a colloquial term is he chucked in the Dremel from home, like with the different end bits and whatever, and like he's in the front of the car dremeling out metal, and the term that he put on the story was like, you'll never know when you need the track lathe. And I'm like, the track lathe is just the funniest colloquial thing. I feel like taking a Dremel to mountain bike races just so I can send him a picture and go, "Yep, I've got the track lathe."
I've taken it to the last like 2 races I've been to, and it's the best. I haven't needed to use it, but like, I've had it there, which is awesome. Like,
I don't feel like such a dickhead then.
No, like I'm honestly like my power tools are coming with me to every race now that I go to, like that I'm driving to. Like you just
hilarious.
Need to do it, man. Like same with the other tool I always take now is bearing extractors for fucking Timmy Eaton. Like I remember at February of the year, it was like trying to get a bearing out. I think he started it, and then like the bearings were just fucked. The inner race came out, and it was just the outer race sitting in the frame. And I went and bought one of those Willows manufacturings, like the extractors. And I'm like, now that goes with me every time I know Tim's at the race. I'm taking that fucking tool. Yeah. Stupid.
Yeah.
But Tim Eaton problem.
Yeah, Timmy Eaton. The one thing I want to try is a tool bag. And I can't remember who had one. But someone at the World Cup had a custom leather bag that he'd made himself.
Old mate from Giant has a fucking amazing bag, and that's always been what I wanted. I was like, I want the bag. That's what I like the Nipex one is just slots you put the stuff back in, and you kind of know where it goes back into, but it's not like the end of the world to pack the thing up. Me and I won't share too many details. Me and Aaron were talking about some ideas with that as well, like a bag folder kind of idea. So there might be a bit of noise in a second because Jess is coming home. So apologies.
What about a gun case, Lockie? You haven't thought about setting that one up?
I thought about the gun case a long time ago. I feel they are the epitome of faff, but if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. But I like the fact there's wheels on it and you wheel that puppy around.
Yeah, true.
I tell you, like while you're on the gun case type of topic, did you see, I'm not sure if you guys follow Paul Aston.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So did you see the suspension package that he got done from Russellman?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Dorados and dude. So he's basically got a full suspension set up. And like, I think I was talking to someone about, I was talking to Chase, who's the other member of Trinity, the other day, because I saw a thing, like I'm a big sort of moto fan, so I keep up with, what sort of factory teams are doing, like Shower or whatever. Like I get a lot out of it. But Russellman was like the closest that I'd seen to like a factory moto setup, like pretty well had like a gun case with like high density foam in it that had like the forks, shock, all types of shit, like different offset clamps, like all that, but in one like big Pelican case with individual cutouts. And I was like, that is fucking sick, because I saw something like, I can't remember who it was. It was Pro Circuit or, someone like that who basically had the same thing for motos. Like they had all different, like it was for linkages, and they had like a case like that, and it had all different linkages and yokes in there for different progression and shit. So they'd take the whole case to like the Supercross round, the practice track or whatever, and they'd swap it out. And I was like, fuck, that's a pretty good setup.
There's a moto, I can't know who the company is. There's a moto service company I follow that dabble in a bit of mountain bike suspension. But yeah, they've got the cases. I believe from what I've seen, either the customers own the cases or they send them the cases to send the suspension back in, which is cool because it's just the legs and the shock. But that's really, really cool stuff. Yeah, like I have a gun case at work and it holds star pickets, a massive hammer, and some ratchet straps, and it's the best thing in the world. Star picket holders. But I don't like the other thing that I don't get with the gun case is they are heavy. Like there's a lot more material there, straight up. But I just don't believe like the industry standard trestle table for mechanics would actually hold it up if it's not bang in the middle. Like if that thing's too far at the back, it's flipping that trestle table and you're fucked.
The industry standard trestle table, the one that everyone uses.
I've never worked in an event and used a different trestle table to those white trestle tables. Actually, there's two variants. There's the one that flips in half. And there's the one that's flat.
Yeah.
I've just sent this to the to the group chat. This I it might not be a gun case, but it's basically a very long Pelican case.
Yeah.
It'd be worth having a look. It's on Paul Aston, so Aston MTB, ex-World Cup racer from the UK. Go check it out. It's pretty wild stuff.
He does actually listen to the podcast as well, so big shout out to Aston.
Shout out to Paul.
That's rad.
We'll make it the last question before we start wrapping things up. What is the best tool that someone should have at home? And I'm going to say without mentioning Allen keys.
So this is all on a similar narrative. I feel like we're doing the toolbox episode again.
Yeah.
Fuck, I don't know. Other than Allen keys, I don't know.
Knipex pliers.
Yeah.
It's like the home press. Oh, like the race
press.
Yes.
The race press.
Yeah.
Like you can press DUs in, you can press bearings in, you can tighten reverb collars, you can tighten any nut with it. They're really good for straightened derailleur hangers if you're stuck. I've used them on rear shocks to get air cans off at tracks. I get one person to hold it, and that's like your vice, and then you use the chat wrench.
Okay, yeah. I thought you meant use on the air can. I was like, oh.
No. Actually, so Knipex make like a padded, like adjustable wrench for that, which I want to try, but you'd overlize cans pretty easily if you like got a bit ham on it. But yeah, there's so much that you can do with that tool. So they've got a really nice bit of purchase and they're quite sharp at the front. They're awesome on rotor bolts if you've threaded them as well.
Yeah, okay.
Like get around the sides and crack them open. Like they seem like a weird tool, but because they press and they're not like an adjustable spanner or a nut fucker or whatever you want to call it.
Glorified
they work
hammer.
Amazingly. Glorified hammer. So yeah, I'd go the Knipex pliers. Like they might seem overkill, but there's so much shit you can use that for.
I'm gonna say like a derailleur hanger tool is something that more people should own.
Yeah,
and have at home. Like
I stand by Knipex, but I agree more people should own that, or like groups of friends own it.
Yeah.
The one that kind of I reckon on the topic of the one that more people should own, and it kind of comes back to that doubling up of certain tools again with mine, and maybe it's just because I'm a little bit too picky, but I've become picky about it. I wasn't necessarily picky about it when I first started riding mountain bikes, but I'm really picky about tire pressures, or at least knowing where my tire pressure is. Because I do kind of alter the tire pressures depending on what I'm riding, or like what tracks I'm riding, what the terrain is, or whatever. But more so, I want to know where I'm actually at. Look, people who race are pretty in tune with having like a digital tire gauge, but I know a lot of people that don't have a digital tire gauge and or don't care what their tire pressure's at. And I think like obviously for riding quality, but also for your own safety, I reckon it's actually really important.
Oh, dude, I was talking to Nige about this. Reeves at Maydena, like and it kind of leads to like squishy bit stuff. Like if you want to go to the level of doing like a squishy bit session and playing with your suspension, like you should 100% be over your tire pressure. It doesn't have to mean you know exactly what tire pressure you're running. Just be consistent. Like it's such a big thing. Like fuck worrying about tokens or compression or rebound or any of that stuff if you don't care about your tire pressure. Like
100%.
It is fundamental to riding consistently and properly.
So on that topic, and I guess it's kind of fitting because Leogang World Cup is coming up this weekend, which I'm very excited for. A lot of people shit on Leogang. I reckon Leogang's a really cool stop. It's a good one to watch. I think it's always a little bit different maybe if you've been there because you know what it's like. But there's a few Aussies riding Leogang, one being Hayden Stead, so he's a local Melbourne boy.
Oh, sick.
So definitely want to give props to Hayden because he's a good lad, but he's also very, very, very fast and very underrated. For those that don't, I think he got top 10 at nationals, but he won Oshie's like outright too. And he's just kind of been building, like, you know, at the Vic Downhill Series, like he's been going very, very quick. I think he won the overall Vic Downhill Series, and like there's no slouches. But in any case, to give you a bit of a story to let you know how fast this dude is, and to tie it into the tyre pressure thing, we were racing Oshie's this year, and Darcy Coots and I were, I think it was race morning. We were just doing like a tire check, so we had our tire gauges out, doing whatever, and Hayden comes over and was basically like, "No, I don't check pressures. I just feel them with my hand. If they're good, and then went out and won Oshie's, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" If that were me, like I just wouldn't be comfortable anyway. But to give you a bit of an idea how quick he is, he can win on anything, I think. But
we did tyre testing years ago when I was racing at a Rimba, and we just wanted to go well at that race. And tyre pressure alone outside of tyres was like a 4-second difference on a 3-minute track.
Yeah.
Which is pretty big. Like that was at riding like 70%. And then like tyres is even more than that. I think with pressures, like we ended up getting to like 10 seconds just on that. I went for someone who was like mid-pack and like probably third there. That's just because we dialed in tyres and tyre pressure.
Yeah, I think it's super important for people too to muck around with tyre pressure. Because it's one of those things too, like depending on how you ride and how you weight the bike and whatever, your tyre pressure definitely varies between riders. I think it's really important to know what different tyre pressures feel like, so you can be in tune with your own riding. So if you go to a different track, you can be like, oh, I reckon that another PSI or two might be better. Like for instance, like Pineapple as an example, like was pretty hard pack. It was really fast rolling, whatever. So you know, you didn't need the grip like you would on a traditional sort of downhill track. So you pump them up a bit and just roll super quick. Like that's a pretty stock standard kind of analogy, but I think it is really important for people to get in tune with trying different pressures and knowing sort of what stuff actually feels like.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Just being consistent is good too, right? Like I think all yes, 100% you should play with and understand it. Same with suspension. At the end of the day, at least if you can be consistent and then there's one less variable, I think that's good.
Definitely.
And those toe peak gauges, like those things are the bomb. I bought a Lazarm one, which was pretty nice, but the battery didn't last a super long time. Those toe peak Maxxis ones, whatever, like those are the bomb. They last forever, man. Like they don't ever wear out. People just steal them. I've owned like 6 of them and they've just all gone missing because they've sent off people's pockets.
Yeah, it was pretty funny at that rainy race. Everyone's messing with their suspension to get it used to the wet. And I'm just like, just take 2 PSI out of your tires and see how that goes. It makes all the difference.
Like, forks and shocks do change for sure, but they get to operating temp pretty quick.
Yeah. All right. We mentioned Leo Gang. I just want to know, who's your tips?
Connor.
Yep.
I want Troy to win because I love Troy, but we'll be sick for Connor. He's had some banging results there, right? And I think that bike will suit it really well. So
he's also riding just really good. Like I'd really like to see him get up.
It is the place where International Remembrance Day for Connor Fearon happened with Chain Gate when he got second to Aaron Gwynn.
Yeah. Like he's had really good results. I know there's a lot of people. I honestly haven't really thought about it.
The funny thing is, like,
Troy's back.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think it's just look, probably going to cop some heat from this, but like,
do it.
I do have to laugh at like don't get me wrong, like I get both sides of it, like I get both sides of it, but and like there are years where they've bunted the track kind of dumb and whatever, but yeah, I do find it funny when keyboard warriors shit on Leo Gang, like, oh, it's fucking too easy. Insane. I'm like, dickhead, you go there and fucking ride that. Like, there are some sections of Leo Gang, no matter which year it's been ran, but particularly now, like that wood section's fucking real gnarly. But even when Leogang was quote unquote easy, like there were a couple of sections that were pretty gnarly.
I rode it when it was easy, quote unquote, and it was not easy. Like it was easier, but like the pros complain about it because it's so quick. It's unsafe if you come off and you need to make risk. And I have total agreement with that. Like I've ridden it when it's like that, and I get it. Like when you come off that motorway section, and then there's
that fucking wall ride.
That wall ride is scary as fuck,
dude. You feel like your tires are gonna rip off. It feels gnarly, and it's shit when you have to push on those things. But like the rest of the track is 100% gnarly, and there's some years it's been better than others. And I think the last couple are great. When they first opened that course and it replaced Schladming, it was fucked, dude. I remember watching. I didn't race it. I was there with my mate, like looking after his bike and trying to film and shit. And watching Rishi coming through that section, and he was like, "Holy shit!" Like, so it is super gnarly. It's only down the road from Schladming. But yeah, if you haven't ridden that track, don't comment on it because it is a bit bike parky, but it's fucking scary.
Yeah, for sure. And like, anyone's valid to their opinion, and like open to the pros saying whatever they want about it, and that everyone's valid for that. But yeah, the keyboard warriors that are like, "Oh, too bike parky," I'm like, "Fuck, yeah, righto, okay."
I want to watch them. Any keyboard warrior should be made to ride that route section over the stumps.
Like, don't get me wrong, I don't really want to see Stromolo come back ever again. Like, because I just wasn't into that, and I will be a keyboard warrior with it. I don't think it's World Cup worthy or World Champs worthy. But you know what? It sounds really crazy, but like, I don't mind a track that's got a big old pedal in it. Like, we're riding mountain bikes, but on motorbikes, like, I like people being able to like show their physical fitness. Like, it's good. And not that you can pedal a hell of a lot anymore in the game. It's obviously proven to be a bit faster to not. But like, yeah, those physical tracks I think are a good thing.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a very, very, very strong outing from the Meyer Smith brothers at this race.
Oh, yeah.
I think like broader than that, like I totally agree. But I think like just the Aussie contingent that's overseas at the moment is super, super strong.
Did you see like how many people are shouted out for privateers? I'm like, holy crap. It was like 20 downhillers.
There's so many Aussies over there at the moment. Like particularly like privateers, like Dave Maggs is over there, which is really cool. Like obviously Booker fucking got up on the weekend. I think everyone was like,
did like what we all wanted him to do. Like, yeah, because like I don't know if anyone knows the background of that, but like, and this is secondhand information. Like I wasn't there, so I'm not gonna pretend I did. But like from what I understand, is like Booker and Sam are riding together, and Sam was behind him, being like, I'm not struggling, but like I'm having to push to keep up with this kid on these tracks. Like this is fucked. You know, like that's how quick Booker is. I don't know if everyone understood that. I think a lot of people were like, oh, he's just a Maydena local. Like, no, he's just stupidly quick on a bike and very smart rider.
Very talented. Like,
I think part of it too is because he's just really humble. Like he doesn't go out of his way to be like, oh, I'm just fucking super quick. He's just like, yeah, I'm just hanging out, just having a ride, whatever. Which I think is like really admirable for. I think that's why we all are stoked to see him get up.
Yeah. Last run at Endurofest, he's like, oh, my bike's feeling a bit slow. You can just have a look at my rebound. I was like, oh, I'll have a look. I don't really want to change a lot for you. Like we're at the top of the track. I think rebound was like nearly closed on the back of the bike. I'm just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, yeah, he's just quick, man. Like he's one of those guys. Like, yeah, he probably could just go squeeze his tires and still win. Like,
It reminds me, he actually reminds me of Sam Hill a lot.
Yeah.
And same with like
those
Connor.
memes going around from the squids and stuff at the moment. It's like, yeah, it's sick.
So good.
Gilchrist going well. That was sick.
Gilchrist is going real good.
I was so stoked to see him come third.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been that stoked for a very long time. Like, that's so sick.
I just said it sounds mean, like he's fast enough. So I'm not saying he's not fast enough. I just kind of wasn't expecting it. Like, it was his first time over there, you know what I mean? Like, and he's been up there, like, you know, he was just behind Booker at Endurofest, you know what I mean? But there's a whole different kettle of fish to like go overseas. But then like he's been living out of his van for the last few like weeks and months leading up to it. So it's all probably like really helped him do that. Like I'm pretty proud of the kid.
The other thing too is that like I think is like of all the Aussies that are over there at the moment, which is impressive, like particularly those that did well on the weekend and whatever, is that they weren't typical Aussie conditions either. Like it definitely favoured locals and Euros.
Oh, dude, Innerleithen is. Have you ridden there, Mick?
I've never been to Scotland, no.
So I've ridden it in the mud though, so it was like proper Euro condition.
Yeah.
But it may have looked dusty like Australia, but it is so tight there. I've never ridden anywhere so tight with the trees. It was pretty evident with a lot of people running like 720, 730 bars.
Everyone's knuckles are fucked.
Yeah, like it is really tight. I rode a downhill race there and it's the worst result I've ever had at a downhill race because I just couldn't get in the flow of it. Like the flow is different and then it's tight. So it's like you can't get wild. You've got to be really picky with your lines. So I think it's not the complete opposite. Like it's not like riding, I don't know, like Andorra in the wet or something, but like it's not a native Aussie track. Those places.
And like while we're on the Booker thing, I am really stoked for Lee again because I think I don't know. I think Lee again. Yeah, he's racing. Yeah, he's racing. So. Two reasons that I'm stoked to see him racing. One is because, like, obviously he raced enduro last weekend and downhill this weekend, so that's fucking pretty sick. First year on Nuke Proof, like, you know, officially overseas. But second of all, like, he's so smooth, and I feel as though Leogang is a track that helps smooth guys.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's one of those things. Like, it might look easy through a TV screen, but I think like those that go balls to the wall, like you were saying, Lockie, like it gets so fast and scary. I think guys that go balls to the wall end up blowing themselves up.
Yeah.
Whereas guys like Aaron's run where he won a few years ago, he couldn't pedal, but he was so smooth. Like he was speed tucking everywhere, catching every single backside, and the guys that might have been going faster were going harder, but they were missing backsides and fucking all that type of shit.
I think the only person I saw not hit backsides the other year and get a good result, or was going to get a good result, was Tebow. Like he was just over clearing everything, but he was still up. I think until he crashed. He crashed, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
but like he was just going stupid quick. But again, he like balls to the wall, couldn't hold on to it, right? So
the other thing too is like those jumps on the motorway are fucking decent too.
Oh yeah,
they've changed them this year.
Have they?
Oh, really?
They're much smaller.
What, push the ramps in?
I think they're smaller lips and smaller jumps, yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Poor Tebow.
The motorway is not, like, that's the hardest thing in the motorway is actually getting the backsides. Like, I don't think I did a World Cup there. I did some IXS Cup there. And like,
I remember casing the fuck out of a few of them.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I remember casing the first few runs, and then in my race run was like, coming in, there was one that was kind of like went to the right and down and then to the left. And I just remember just completely not pushing or squashing the lip and then just like over clearing the fuck out of it. Then some and then like trying to, it's gnarly. Like it's real gnarly.
I like bikes. Sick. That was a tangent. That was good.
That should have been first up in the potty, I reckon.
I'll swap it around.
Leo Gang predictions.
Just move it.
A little bit of editing.
I think we should do a pre World Cup recording though. Like I think throughout the year, I think we should schedule these like the Wednesday or Thursday before World Cup. So I reckon that'd be cool.
That'd be down. Oh, speaking of which, actually, which I thought we should have talked about, but I forgot. And obviously I haven't actually seen anything, but like those new brake calipers, you know, see those on Troy or Connor's bike?
Yes. No. Best color. Yeah. Those colors, man. I don't care about the design, but those colors, bring it at me.
Oh, did you say colors or calipers?
Calipers with colors. Yeah.
Oh, calipers with colors.
Have a look. Yeah. There's nothing. I don't know anything. I haven't seen anything. I'm not claiming to. And I was trying to get some inside knowledge from people, which obviously, if I even did get, I couldn't share. But I didn't get any inside knowledge. But yeah, there's some cool red calipers on some downhill bikes.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Do you reckon they're like a black box code?
They 100% are. Yeah.
I'm not saying shit. Yeah.
I am, because they look because they are completely different shapes. Like you can tell there's different oil paths and stuff in there.
I'm going to go out on a limb, call me stupid, but call me stupid in a year. I reckon mineral oil.
They've already got mineral oil, though, right?
They've already got mineral oil.
Hey, what in
their
their new.
I'm going to try some of those in my new build, actually. I'm really keen to try those out.
Yeah.
I don't reckon those will be mineral oil, just because there's a photo of Aaron bleeding him with Dot. But
good pickup. Oh, yeah, I've just come across them now.
But and I don't think Troy would change. Look, there's definitely those DB8s feel cool because the rubbers are softer, so they feel softer off the top. But I don't think.
Yeah, they've gone mineral oil in those DB8s or whatever, but yeah, not the codes are still Dot. Hey.
Yeah. But at least for me, from what it looks like the pistons are closer. It looks like they're bigger pistons as well, which is interesting. But then it would make sense with them in my head, and I'm not a brake engineer in any way, shape, or form, is there's obviously less distance for that oil to move. So they might engage differently. And then I would assume that the rear piston's bigger, which would mean the front one's potentially bigger, or then maybe they're the same size. I don't know. But there was that leak shot. Did anyone see that? The big brake that was on Pink Bike maybe like a year ago.
Yeah, the double caliper setup.
Yeah, the double caliper setup. So from what it looked like on there is it wasn't two code calipers, they were two single piston calipers. So maybe they're trying two of the same size piston or something. I don't know. It looks interesting. It's very different. It's very compact. So.
I understand that had one small piston to get modulation,
the
right?
Smaller piston, yeah, well, it kind of tows the brake in as well. So it aids in noise and heat kind of building up at the front of the brake. But then it's got that cover thing there, right? Maybe that cover has something to do with it. I don't know. Yeah. I want to know more, but I also love that I don't know more, that I can actually speculate.
Yeah, I don't want to know more. I must admit, Aaron's coming back video where he's I've completely forgotten which way to turn bolts, and I don't know. It's been so long. I love that guy all the time around.
He's rad, eh? He's a good dude.
Have you seen? I don't know. I'm on Pink Bike at the moment, just looking at the tech article talking about the internet warriors saying about how Leogangs are easy. Have you seen some of the stack height people are putting up under their bars?
I saw that. That's actually the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, that section must be in the woods, must be pretty gnarly if people bring those bars up.
Fucking oath. Particularly if you take that inside off the ledge, over the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then also, that wood section's not that long. The rest of the track is really steep. It just doesn't feel steep. It is a really steep place. Even the free ride track, which I've ridden a lot there as well, it's just really steep. As I said, it's literally an hour away from Schladming. It's the same mountain range pretty much. I was chatting to
when I was up at Pineapple, I was chatting to Jacko White, and he raced Leogang the same year I was over there, and we were just talking about we're just kind of reminiscing on the trip and all that type of stuff. And he was saying the same thing about, on Leogang, how, pretty well right before, the finishing straight, you kind of come around the left-hander and, down the rock waterfall type thing. That's, infamous for people washing out. And, you watch it on video, and mainly because of the angle at which they're recording from is kind of front on and from up high, because they record it from the bridge. It's what the fuck are people always crashing there for, washing out the front end and shit? And then you actually go there and ride, and you're oh, holy fuck. You're going in there really hot, and you're turning
so
90, and then you're weightless the whole way down. That's why people are crashing there.
Yeah, because you come out of that chute and then turn right, and you're hooking. You are hooking down that bit. Yeah. And it's so easy because you got to de-weight and then you got to push into the drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a gnarly track, man. I don't know. It is funny. More people need to go ride it. It's not again, back to the Stromlo comment, right? No one's going to Leogang and making a Peter Maritzburg or a Stromlo bike. You know what I mean? It's not, if you think it's tame, then people will be riding a smaller bike, and there'd be benefits in that, but there isn't. You know what I mean? So that's just testament to the fact that it is a legit track.
100%.
Yeah, I'm looking through this pink bike. I would recommend people go and have a look at the article. Most people probably already have. I haven't, but the tech randoms are pretty cool.
I think I post up before this. I love tech randoms and tech bits.
I think half the reason why they're running caliper covers is to really kind of cover up the new code. Hey,
definitely.
100%.
Definitely. But I just wonder if there's something else to it as well. I don't know, but because it's so open on the backside.
And there was a little button on Loris's bike. Oh,
I didn't see this one.
No, Finn Isles bike.
A little button.
Oh, with the.
It looks like it's telemetry, but
yes, yeah. I think it was under a few photos of telemetry, but yeah.
Yeah. But I'm wondering if
I'm all about electronic suspension. I'm all about that. Did you see Charles Murray had a flight attendant coil shock when he's...
I did.
I was like, yes.
I didn't see that.
I want that so bad, dude. So bad. Like, I want flight attendant. I can't get flight attendant because it's OEM only, and it makes me really sad.
Yeah, when are they going to make it not OEM only? That's what I want to know.
To be honest, man, I don't see it becoming an aftermarket thing easily.
Really? Easily. Yeah, definitely. It's not going to be easy, but surely they'll do it at some point.
Well, yeah, like the fork's easy. Like the fork kind of fits. There's a couple bikes you'd probably get a bit of stuff hitting. The thing is the shocks, right? So they're bigger. There's way less bikes they're going to fit just from a architectural shape of it. I don't know if that's the right word, architecture. Anyway, but then the next thing from it is the tunes. So
yeah, for sure.
Like there is so many tunes now because you've got linear and you've got progressive rebound tunes. And actually, who summed that up? Someone did a really good video on those the other day I was watching. Anyway, and then you've got all the compression tunes. It's really hard to get that right for the bike. Plus, you've also got the hydraulic bottom out option with the shocks. So, which they're not even selling the hydraulic air shock, bottom out air shock aftermarket. Like that's how hard it is to get the right things for customers. So I really don't foresee it being a thing that's not OEM, at least for a long time.
So are you saying that the hydraulic bottom out that RockShox has just bought out isn't available on anything but OEM? No,
on the air shock.
Yeah, so on the air shock.
Yeah. So the one where it's got the down body with a little arrow. I had to look it up today for a customer. He was like, I just want to know if any of those are the bottom out ones. But yeah, all the ones we're getting are not hydraulic bottom out, which makes sense, right? Because on a lot of those shocks, for the most part, with an air shock, it can be hard to bottom them out anyway. So if you introduce a metered needle you might have a really harsh bottom out at the end of it. So the coil is hydraulic bottom out, which is adjustable, but the air one, at least when I've seen aftermarket, the bottom out version of that's OEM specific.
So if that is the case, I reckon it would be really cool to have hydraulic bottom out on an air shock. I know the reason, I guess, I can see their reasoning behind having it only OEM if that is the case. On a similar topic though, but off on a tangent a little bit, I honestly think that coil with hydraulic bottom out will reinvigorate the coil market.
Oh, dude, I was saying at the start, I have bought a new frame, which is at Orange, which should be here in a month. And there's a coil in the 190 by 45 with hydraulic bottom out on it. I am ordering that thing tomorrow, and it's going to, because especially on the shorter shocks, you know what I mean? There's one, they never used to be a 190 at all in coil because you would just bottom the thing out. There wasn't enough coils there really to not just get a really bad bottom out on bikes. But especially in that 185 range as well, you're going to have a lot more bikes that are going to be able to be compatible with coil because there's control of the bottom out. That was the only thing holding coils back because you have a fixed rate of compression to bottom the thing out. So I wouldn't be surprised if you just see more and more and more coil now.
Definitely. Excuse the ignorance, but on the hydraulic bottom out on RockShox, can you tune where the hydraulic bottom out comes into effect? On
the coil, it's adjustable.
It's adjustable.
Yeah. So you're, from what I haven't put one apart, from what I understand, you'd just be moving the needle in and out.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a huge range on it. But on the air shock, it's built into the damper body. And that's what I was trying to figure out today. So if they end up selling the damper body standalone, it's the same shock, just the damper body that changes. And it's got like a kneaded needle in the bottom of the body. So it's a really bad like analogy, but like say my finger's here, the damper body, and there's a needle in the bottom that goes into the main piston of the shock at the last 20 mil of travel, and the needle starts to go in.
Well, okay.
But it's not adjustable; it's fixed.
Well, that kind of goes back to the original point. Then I think half the reason why I guess they're selling them only OEM is that if you were to sell the hydraulic bottom out on an air shock aftermarket, is that hydraulic bottom out would have to be adjustable because every bike changes in its pneumatic, obviously.
And so many bikes wouldn't suit it. Like, it's the same with Megnags, right? I know like Dan, when you do listen to the podcast, Dan's a mate of mine. I was like, don't get a Megnag for your drive because you're not going to get full travel. It's really hard to get full travel on a thing. Crazy. But like, yeah, a lot of bikes won't suit us. I'd say it'd be the same thing with that, and that's why they're doing it.
I think the only hydraulic bottom out shock that I've ridden was an EXT. And like, don't get me wrong, the EXTs are a great shock anyway. But the thing that I noticed straight off was the hydraulic bottom out. Like, it was fucking unreal. And like, I didn't ride it enough to really mess around with it. Like, I pretty well rode it just stock, bone stock on the Trinity. But yeah, it was unreal. And it just felt like you had that support there, but not like you were hitting a wall. It was like, you just kind of riding on the edge of it, ramping up on a coil, which is like, what the fuck? Because like when it went into its positive part of the 30% travel, like when it's in the chatter, it was so supple because it was just relying on the coil and the damping in the shock. But then as soon as you hit something hard, it would go deep enough to hit the hydraulic bottom out. But yeah, like I was saying, it wasn't like hitting a wall. It was just like hitting a more solid cushion. It was like fucking unreal.
And not letting the coils bind, you know what I mean? Which is slow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, I mean, it's been a long time coming, really. I mean, EXT and guys like that are involved in motorsport. I mean, motorsport have been doing it for a long, long time. But
it's definitely going to, I think as you said, it's going to revitalize coil.
Definitely.
And it's going to have a lot more applications. Like, I'm going to be putting it on a 120 mil travel bike. I'm a massive air shock fan. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a coil fanboy, but I'm so keen to try that because I have the option now to not just clap the thing out, bottoming it out all the time. And then obviously combining, like, now there's high speed as too, that helps. Not that high speed helps bottom out, but it helps control that motion.
Because, and again, I don't want to go too deep into it, but the other thing I found, and I think this is like half the reason why, like, obviously people like jumping an air shock because they're lighter, so you're not weighing down a slope style bike, whatever. But just the characteristics of a coil, in my opinion anyway, can feel a little bit unnerving compared to an air shock to purely just do jumps on. Yeah. And I think half the reason why is because the air ramps, you kind of set it up so that, like, when you jump, you kind of preload the shock and kind of get that pop. And I think that's why people like a poppy air shock, is because kind of when you compress in to pop off a lip, you're like compressing into that verge where it starts to ramp up. And you can feel that through like your own body's gyro. You can feel that, being right on that limit and pop off it. Whereas I think the thing about a coil is, like, for it to be set up well enough for it to track is when you do like a really big jump, I guess, and you get any of that preload, is that there's no sort of wall to resist on. You know what I mean? Like, it can feel like it wallows, like on a ramp, you can feel like it wallows. Whereas I think, like, riding the EXT anyway, that's one of the first things I noticed, because like the first lap I did was just on Hero, which aren't huge jumps or whatever, but I was like, because it probably had a poundage of spring that was 50 pounds too light, if anything. But it was like, whoa, like I can preload into a jump and it's actually got support there when I do it. It doesn't feel wallowy like a softer coil traditionally would.
It's like the thing with coil is because it's obviously got the linear rate. It doesn't exactly you said, doesn't change. So you're not in the ramp trying to get to jump. There's a few other things internally with the air shock, which I don't know a hell of a lot about, but I've heard information about. I've tried to research it as much as I can. But it's like the adiabatic effect as well. So like when you push into the air spring, that very quick movement of the air heats the air up and changes the spring rate ever so slightly in the main can. And that's what makes them have a bit more support when you push into them. And that's the favorable trait that I really like with air is that kind of motion. But then obviously you see riders like Troy, who notoriously pumps everywhere. And he's loving that new coil shock, you know what I mean? And he was on air for quite some time before. So I think it's going to be, I think the $100 bottom out will be a really good thing. More people will be able to try coil and hopefully set it up better and not have to deal with ramp up springs that I'm not a fan of.
Great. On that note, I think we should wrap things up and go.
It's been a long one.
Go eat some dinner. Thanks for that. Enjoy.
Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Enjoy the long weekend. I think you guys got a long weekend.
Yeah.
And
got a squishy bit session Saturday and then chilling out the rest of the weekend.
Heck yeah. Sick.
Shit.
Yeah.
Easy. We'll speak soon. Thanks for that.
Do the next one. We'll do the next one before World Cup.
Yeah. I'll do some planning.
Yep.
Controversial.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Good night.
Right, see ya. Bye.
There we go, guys. Thanks so much for listening. We went on a bunch of tangents down there. A few technical stuff, a few industry stuff, and a bit of racing. So that's why this will be changing to something called Down the Rabbit Hole, where we just chat, talk shit for a while, talk everything bikes, but the tech talk will still be a main aspect of it. So we'll be answering listener questions, doing Ask a Mechanic type stuff, delving into news. If you want our opinion on something, then shoot us a question. As usual, the best question for every episode gets a $100 voucher to Lead Out Sport so you can pimp your toolbox. If you guys want to support the podcast, make sure you support all the sponsors. Jump over to the website for merch and spread the word around. Until the next podcast, thanks for listening and have a bunch of fun.